Okay, I think we're ready to go. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Innovate and Modernize Your RFP Creation Process, presented by ProcurementIQ. We're really excited to introduce our RFP Builder to you today, which we spent much of the past 12 months developing based on client requests. I'm Andy Brennan, Marketing Manager at ProcurementIQ, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Before I introduce our speakers, Lyle and Torsten, let's cover off on a couple of housekeeping topics. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you'll be able to access it on our website tomorrow. We will email you a link to the webinar after the event so that you can rewatch or share with colleagues. If you have any questions for the speakers during the presentation, type it into the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many questions at the end of the presentation. If we're not able to get to your questions, we'll follow up with you after the webinar. Just a quick agenda for you here on the screen. All right, today's presenters are Torsten Edsam and Lyle Dixon-Smith. Torsten is a lead research analyst here at ProcurementIQ and our lead implementation specialist for the tool to help you get up and running quickly. Lyle is an SVP at ProcurementIQ and works with procurement departments of all sizes around the world. Both Lyle and Torsten were instrumental in creating the RFP Builder and are currently working with a number of clients to get the tool implemented. With that, I'll hand it over to Lyle and Torsten.
Great, thank you, Andy. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us. So let's get straight to it. So why did we invest time, money, and energy into creating this tool? Well, let's have a look at the points on the slide. They go a long way to sum up a lot of the reasons why we created it. And the first point is the most important and the most unique. This tool is designed to provide RFP templates that are already populated with category-specific best practices for hundreds of different categories. And we'll get into this very shortly. Probably seen the word automate. We obviously can't automate everything, but we can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you and your teams in that RFP writing or creation stage. Most procurement professionals that I speak to say they're either overwhelmed with the amount of information that is required to go into the creation process, especially for a robust RFP, and the writing of it and putting it together and collaborating is one of the most time-consuming aspects, and then also being sure of the best practices required for each RFP by category is a challenge because naturally they're all different. I've personally had meetings with existing clients and prospects discussing this tool, and I know my colleague Torsten here is as well. The beginning and end of those meetings couldn't be more different. For example, clients say, oh, we already have a good process, or RFP is one thing we don't need help with, or we have our own templates that we work from, or I don't see how logging into another tool or another system or integrating another system will be of any help. And then about 5 to 10 minutes into reviewing the tool, the tone turns around to, yep, I can see how this could be of value. And we're hoping to get that message across to everyone who's attending today, because there really isn't any integration required. We just want to make your lives a bit easier. And to make sure we're on the same page, this tool is not designed to replace existing content management systems necessarily, but more to become part of that process and fit into the stage of creation to submission. And the other aspects are just having a standardized document that everyone is working from in a centralized place allows for better version control, especially when there are many contributors to the RFP process. It enables collaboration that drives a powerful and efficient process. And the benefit of this is to obtain more vendor responses and achieve better outcomes from the sourcing event. So today we're going to cover off on these points. I'll just highlight them for all you as I go down. So the category-specific templates, I know we've covered it, but this is the most standout part because it's actionable integrated content featuring best practices and an educational aspect as to the importance of what to include in every RFP and why. It's already proven to save anywhere from a week to 3 weeks, depending on each category, those differences in them, skill level, subject matter expertise, and as well as improve the communication and collaboration with stakeholders. So we're going to get into this. I'm going to invite discussion with my colleague Torsten. Hey Torsten, so between us, we have been on just over, I think about 200 hours now or more worth of demos and meetings regarding this RFP Builder over the last 2 months.
Yeah, easily that many conversations.
And you definitely have, I think, the lion's share of that. So I'd like to ask you what has been the most standout feedback we've had from clients, and then we can get into the tool.
Absolutely. So the feedback that strikes me as most immediate is what we've been hearing about our category-specific templates. In a lot of cases, I've been speaking with clients and they've commented that they have generic templates that they use for their RFPs. And a lot of them are comfortable using these templates. But one of the problems that they run into is that then they have to adapt that template anytime they're writing in a new category. And that decreases, that adds to the time of writing, and that really decreases the efficiency of that RFP process. Now, what we're offering is that our analysts have gone through at this point thousands of RFPs across the economy and looked at RFPs from various organizations to identify best practices and put together our templates and integrate our market intelligence research into the templates as well. Now, would you like me to maybe show you them?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've often picked up is the time that it takes, and we've already mentioned that. But I was having a conversation yesterday, and a lot of that's come up with, yeah, we've got these generic templates, but how can we actually make it a little bit easier for them and make those generic templates a little bit more granular and also create them quicker? And I remember having a meeting not even 2 days ago where I said it's very possible to create a template or at least 80% of what you need for an RFP in less than 60 seconds. So I think it might be worthwhile just showing everybody what we mean by that. So how about we go to the tool and just create a template RFP from the system, so everyone gets a bit of an idea of what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
In fact, I might even just time that to see how long it takes.
So this is just the landing page for our tool here. I'm going to go to Create RFP.
Okay.
And why don't I bring up procurement software?
I think that'll probably resonate.
One of our most popular reports, and I go ahead and hit Create.
I hit the start button on the timer as well.
So this is just the setup page where you can change the RFP title, you can set the RFP number, change any dates, and I'm just going to delete a few for the sake of time. Just have to hit Create. The template is now just populating in the system. And now we can go into the builder. I just have to click on the title of the RFP. And now here is the preview of the template.
All right, so I'm going to push stop. So it's literally taken us 38 seconds to get to this pre-populated template.
Yes.
So that might not necessarily mean anything to anyone right now. How about, would you mind just walking everybody through what they're actually looking at?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So each of our templates is about 10 to 12 pages long. And the idea behind the templates is to get you about 80% of the way to a completed RFP that is ready to issue. So our analysts have gone through, as I said, thousands of RFPs to identify best practices and to really make these templates category specific. And I think that's one of the key values that we're bringing here is that this information, each of these templates is unique. And we have over 1,000 of them in our collection, plus 20 for broader purchasing categories, like professional services or IT solutions.
Yeah, I think you and I were on a call with somebody who said they have one template for all of their professional services.
Yes, and which that one was interesting where we could respond, well, we have 400, and clearly a sourcing for management consulting services would be different from sourcing for accounting services.
Absolutely.
There was also the call that I was on with a client where they said they used the same template for everything from office furniture to software.
Right.
And in that case, it was a very inefficient system that they had developed, and they immediately saw the appeal of what we're offering.
Okay.
So let me show you a little bit about how the system works, because as I said, the templates get you about 80% of the way to the completed RFP. So we have that last 20%, which is where our clients begin putting in their information.
Okay, and I think this comes back to the point of, where's that customization of
Exactly.
This? And I think there are many aspects there. I think it would probably be worthwhile just running through that system and letting them see.
Absolutely. So those highlighted yellow brackets, that's where our clients begin to put in their information. So I'm going to bring up here, this is the interface that users will typically be interacting with. The text box is all free text input, so our analyst has begun writing some content here so that clients have a base level to start with. And then users will go in and they can add to this text box, they can remove content, they can customize it to however suits their needs. And that's just on the text level, but also on the template level, our templates are fully customizable as well.
I think that's come up a lot as well, where we've had folks say, well, this is too complicated.
Yes.
Or, we're not looking for this level of complication, so can we remove some of these sections?
Yes.
Or others who have gone completely opposite direction and are looking for more information.
Exactly. And so we recognize that these are needs that users have. And so in order to meet those needs, we've created an edit mode in the builder, and so they can go in, they can rearrange these terms, they can change the names of them, they can delete them, they can add new ones. So if you want that higher level complication, you can easily add your own terms. If you want it to be less complicated, users can go in and easily delete terms that they find to be superfluous. Now we built in this level of customization and flexibility because we know that every sourcing event is different and every organization is different.
Yeah, and just thinking about the customization aspect, I've had clients say, well, we've got our own company profile in terms and conditions that we have in our templates. How are we going to get that into the system?
Yes, I've heard that a lot too. Let me just jump back into the typing interface here, because we know that a lot of times organizations like to use content from one RFP to the next. It's all about making it an efficient, repeatable process. So we've actually designed the RFP library, and this is our content management system where you can actually take some of that content from templates you're already using, upload it to the library. I'll just hit import. It populates here, and then I can overwrite what the ProcurementIQ analyst has supplied here.
Yeah, and somebody was talking to me about this where there's no sort of centralization. I think this goes back to the discussion points that customization is one thing, but the centralization aspect brought to them was a lot of people are working with either outdated information or they have different profiles or different terms and conditions. This is now all managed from one central location. So whenever that's updated, that they're using what everyone else is using.
Exactly. That was centralization has been a major pain point that has come up with talking to a lot of clients, where they may have multiple people working on the same RFP at the same time. And at least one case, I talked to a client where they had up to, in some cases, up to 12 stakeholders all working on this, contributing to the same RFP, and they were emailing around a Word doc to each other. And that created all sorts of problems. Nobody knew who had the most recent version of it. Nobody knew which version they were supposed to be working on at any given time, and they were doing all of their RFPs like this. One of the major values that our system brings is that you can have multiple users working on the same document all at the same time. And with tools like the RFP library, if you have that content that you want to have standardized across the entire collection, you can easily have that all stored in one central location.
Yeah, and I think that was also part of the discussion, and having that central location. How do we view all of this? How do we manage those users? What does it look like? Who can contribute to it? It might be worthwhile just having a look at how that can be managed from one central point.
All right. Let me show you our project management tools then. This is my RFP center. This is the administrative dashboard for the RFP Builder. I just have to click on View All RFPs. And in this case, we can actually see all of the RFPs that are currently hosted in the system, that are in progress, RFPs that are currently waiting for approval, and completed RFPs. So everything is stored centrally. Additionally, we track, the RFPs have content tracking information. So we have who is responsible for them, when they were created, when they were last modified, and tools like a calendar tool, so you can see all critical dates associated with the RFP. Now, even though the entirety of the RFP is customizable, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to talk about the benefit of using some of the content that our analysts have prepared.
I think it goes a long way to speaking to why are we including that. And I think it also goes back to the pro tip section that we find along the way, because a lot of clients, when they start to set an event to the right, they see pro tips. What is this about? And I think that's the educational aspect that I might have brought up earlier when I was introducing this, is why does this need to be included? Why is this important? And then also, beyond just why that's important, is there anything else that can support it? What other market intelligence can be there to help support why I'm making this suggestion or this recommendation
Yes.
in this go-to-market strategy, or why I'm including this in the RFP. So I think it's a great idea just to bring that up and show that.
Exactly, because I think this is one of the features of our product that really differentiates us from what others are offering, is that we have integrated all of this all of our market intelligence research into these templates. So with the pro tips, the idea is to advise users on best practices for writing the RFP in that category. They include it, they advise you on what to include, why to include that information, and how that information helps with facilitate the sourcing event. Additionally, we've included links to our market intelligence reports. Now, we did this specifically because we know that from our conversations with clients, a lot of times clients find the information in our reports to be really valuable. However, they may not actually know how to deploy that when writing RFPs, especially when it comes to writing in a category that they don't have previous experience in.
Yeah.
And so in the past, of course, this could become a burden to a client. And so we're shifting that burden off of our clients and instead onto our analysts who are experts in all these categories that they're writing on. And so the pro tips effectively serve as a link between our market intelligence and the RFP writing process.
Right.
Now, one thing I'd also like to mention here is this is another aspect of time saving that the tool brings to the RFP writing process. A number of clients I've spoken to will comment that the actual writing process is relatively quick for them because they have their templates that they're using. However, then I start asking them, well, what about the research time that you're investing? And suddenly that RFP writing process expands from a day to 3 weeks. And I say, well, what if we can actually provide you with that market research combined with the process of writing the RFP? So you aren't having to go out and find those additional sources, and you can just all work on it in one central tool.
Absolutely. I think that's where the feedback about anywhere from a week to 3 weeks so far is what we've got from existing clients actually using this tool, and they're seeing that they're actually able to catch up or not be as behind as perhaps they were in regards to projects, or be able to produce more.
Exactly.
And they're seeing that actually happening in reality.
Yes. Now, may I show you one of our other market intelligence tools here? Because you mentioned developing that go-to market strategy. That's another, from our conversations with clients, that's another thing that we've heard repeatedly, is that without that market intelligence, it's difficult to develop that strategy. So that's why we've included the strategy whiteboard, which draws on information from our reports, and it is our interactive infographic that's designed to help clients develop a go-to market strategy. So it provides information on price strategy, vendor strategy, and market conditions. We provide information, for example, where the price of that category is going in the next 3 years. We have our buyer power score, which is our proprietary metric of how much negotiating leverage buyers have in that market. And if they want to know what the buyer power score means, they just have to look down at market conditions to see what factors are hurting them and which are helping them in negotiations. Now, finally, we also have the vendor screener. And this is one of the tools that our clients really like, because it's, when I've asked clients a lot of times, how are you using market intelligence? One of the first things that comes up is they say, well, we need to find our vendors. And then that opens this conversation of how are you looking for your vendors? And a lot of times it's vendors they've worked with before, or they just got a recommendation. A lot of companies, it seems, don't actually have tools like this to identify their vendors. And so the idea behind the screener, it's drawing on the vendor company types table of our reports, and it's the top 10 to 15 vendors by US market share. And then within the screener, we've designed it so that you can quickly cut down that list, say, of 11 vendors to the ones that you want to actually issue the RFP to. So say if we want to find just vendors who are having a decreasing share of the market, because then you can leverage that during negotiations.
Somebody was talking about that the other day. So, okay, change the way that I actually go to market, or change the way that I approach these vendors based on what's happening in their lives and their world. Exactly.
And so we built this tool to make that a fast and efficient, easy process for clients to actually do.
Okay. So I think one of the other things is, and how are we doing for time? I think one of the other things is I think I might have mentioned it, was what's the integration involved in this, and is there systems integration? And I've had that concern where they say, oh, we've got this, we've already got these systems, why would we want something else? I don't know if you've had a similar sort of feedback, or you want to call it an objection.
Yes, I've actually heard that one quite a lot. It's similar to along the lines of clients being hesitant to introduce another system into what they're working on, into their processes. So let me talk a little bit about integration. So the way that we actually designed our system, our focus is on that creation to submission part of the RFP writing process. So it's research and writing, and as part of that, we have made it. The way that you actually retrieve the RFP from the system is that you download it either as a Word or PDF file. And we did that specifically in order to give ourselves as much flexibility as possible. So as long as you can attach a file to that, to say an email or an e-sourcing platform, whatever you want to use for distribution, our system will integrate it.
Cool.
Now,
all right. So I think it makes it really simple for them to understand how they can just do that. And so we're not actually just logging into the system, creating extra time. We're actually logging into the system and allowing for that. But then there's also the collaboration aspect of it as well, where it allows people to communicate with each other in a centralized format. But I think we're probably running a bit short in time.
Okay.
So maybe we can go to the floor and answer some of the questions that have been posed. Andy, I'll ask you if you've had any questions.
Thanks a lot, Torsten. That was great. So we'll get to a couple of questions. The first question I've got from Anthony. For companies that bring on the RFP Builder, typically how many RFPs are they issuing?
Sure. I mean, I don't know about you, Torsten, but varying. I mean, it could be anywhere from 20 a year to 20 a week.
Yes, I think it depends a lot on the particular company, and one of the things that I would like to stress, though, from conversations I've had with at least one client, was that they prepared a relatively low number of RFPs, but by using the builder, they actually saw the potential for substantially increasing the number of RFPs that they were actually writing.
Absolutely. So we're seeing a lot of proactivity, sort of changing from that reactive sort of space and managing those projects. Okay, great stuff. You might have touched on this earlier, but Tim has asked this question: how long does it take to implement the RFP Builder typically? I suppose that really depends on the company, its existing processes. I mean, it could be as simple as one day, here's your login, and train the individuals. For larger teams, we've had to go on site and spend time with them, making sure they understand this, how they can be worked, and just sure that everybody's skill set and level of understanding of how they can apply this to their day-to-day to execute those RFPs. So it could take as long as a month to actually get that really fully integrated and understood. Yeah.
And on integration and implementation, we do want to make sure that it's as easy for clients as possible. So along with the builder, we do provide in-depth technical training and we have an implementation process where we'll actually talk to clients about, who do they set up with different user profiles, how do they integrate this system into their pre-existing processes, and so on.
Great. I think I've got time for a couple more questions. Peter has asked, if I'm reading this correctly, we've been using a content management system for a few years, for a number of years, for RFPs. How to use these templates in ProcurementIQ's RFP Builder?
So they've got an existing system.
So this is where the RFP library would come into play, and if a client has content that they want to use again and again, they can easily upload that just once into our system, and that's actually part of the implementation that we can work on with the client, is figuring out exactly what they want to bring into the system and reuse. And then with that, once that step of the process is done, then they can easily continue to use that content continuously.
Are there any other questions?
I think that's it in terms of questions.
We were only short of
we've
time.
got time for. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's webinar. Torsten and Lyle, thank you so much for hosting.
Thanks to everybody for attending.
If we didn't get to your question, I know there were a couple there we didn't have time for. We'll follow up with you following the call. Remember, we'll be putting up a recorded version of today's webinar on our website tomorrow. So we'll send you the link following today to share with colleagues. Thank you, everyone, for your time from ProcurementIQ. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.